Dr. Sharma, welcome to Soul Talk with Bhav. We use this term autism biologically.
What is happening to the brain?
You'll be surprised and shocked to know nobody had even looked into the brains of these children. Autism is a neurological problem. It affects the brain. We've actually put together what exactly is happening in the brain.
And also the internet loves autism genius storyline.
Now I'm talking pure science.
We see the label, but we ignore the signals.
We think in thoughts. They think in pictures. These kids are masters at non-verbal communication. They have an amazing ability, for example, to communicate with animals that we can't do.
Any other experience which wowed you? Like,
You tell them any date in the future and they will tell you the day.
if the Supreme Court of India, there's someone who has the authority to stop.
This case was filed by two asking to stop stem cell therapy for autism.
Cristiano Ronaldo and LeBron James, if celebrities can go for regenerative changes, but if a parent of an autistic child finds a hope somewhere, then the flags come out. Where are the trials?
There is nobody opposing them because there is nobody economy suffering because of it. Huge economy for the rehabilitation centers, for the therapists and doctors involved in that. It takes a village to raise a child on the autism spectrum.
If I'm gone tomorrow, who'll take care of my little one? One in 31 kids. 1 in 31 kids. This is not a headline. That's your child's classroom. Autism is everywhere. But unfortunately, the awareness isn't. It shows up when it happens in the real life. The people, they don't call it autism. They call it bad parenting. They stare. They whisper. They judge your child who's having a severe meltdown and the parent who's barely keeping it all together. And behind the closed doors, it's even worse. The nights which goes without sleep. And that thought which haunts every autistic parent's every night of their life, if I'm gone tomorrow, who will take care of my little one? Going after these questions, today I'm here in Mumbai at the institute where the families from across the world, they travel with a hope, seeking help for their autistic children. Speaking today with me is Dr. Alok Sharma, a renowned neurosurgeon who is known for his extensive, innovative stem cell approach, which has sparked both the hype and the controversy. Let me make it very, very clear here. My family has a personal connection with this autism journey. Unlike my other podcaster friends, this is not a content for me. No, This is personal. I'm living it. So today, there's no hype, no hate, just the truth. What's right, what's ethical, what's proven, and what still needs evidence. We'll talk about it. Dr. Sharma, welcome to Soul Talk with Bhav, and thank you so much for having me here in Mumbai, India, at your institute.
The pleasure and privilege is mine.
Dr. Sharma, autism changes a family's nervous system. It doesn't live with one child in your family, the entire family lives it. Knowingly or unknowingly, not sure if you signed up for it, but you carry the weight now of the expectations of all those parents who look at you with their helplessness on their face. I'm going to ask you today the questions which they want to ask in three layers. One, the human factor. Two, the science. Three, the ethics. And pardon me, but since I'm representing all the parents here, I'll be talking as a parent. What it means, the conversation would be raw, they'll be authentic, and it'll be direct. So let's start with the very foundation of autism. When we use this term autism biologically, what is happening to the brain?
So, first, thank you for inviting me on this podcast. As it's a real privilege and honor to be here. And what we're going to discuss today is going to completely alter the perception of close to 70 million families who have children on the autism spectrum. That's about 1% of the world's population. So your question was, what is happening in the brains of kids with autism? This is something we've done extensive research on and published as well. You'll be surprised and shocked to know that prior to our research, nobody had even looked into the brains of these children. This is as ridiculous as, let's say you have a fracture of the leg and you don't even have an x-ray done. Or you have gallstones and nobody even does an ultrasound. Autism is a neurological problem. It affects the brain. Until today, nobody had looked at the brains. What we've done is through special advanced brain imaging, which includes PET-CT scan, which gives you functional data, MRI, which gives you structural data, and EEGs, which give you electrophysiological data. We've actually put together what exactly is happening in the brains of these kids. And what we have found from our data of over 7,000 kids on the autism spectrum is that there are select parts of the brain that are non-functional. So having studied over 7,000 brain scans, we have now put together what parts of the brain in kids with autism are malfunctioning. Now these interestingly correlate with the symptoms. So a child who cannot speak, well, his speech area will be not functioning. Similarly, the other symptoms correlate with what we see in the scans. However, there's something very fascinating we've also discovered. When we were looking at what's not working in the brain, to our surprise, we found there are parts of the brain that are working more than us people. So there is a combination of parts of the brain that are non-functioning and parts of the brain that are functioning more. So this is what is happening in the brain. However, the causes of this has still not been determined because we don't know exactly why is it that some parts of the brain are working less and some parts are working more. There are several theories. We are in the process of researching this. We've come up with some very interesting data. But we now know, one thing we know for sure, which parts of the brain are working less and which parts of the brain are working more. And this data is published in a very interesting paper in the World Journal of Nuclear Medicine.
So this brings me to your, my counter question to what you're saying. So is it some kind of a filtering issue that two brains, the one which cannot block the sounds, and that's why the kids get overwhelmed and meltdowns, and the other one which is super strong, so kids have they remember the patterns, they have their strong memory. So is it more of a filtering issue?
The word filtering doesn't really completely explain. I would use another word, and I would call it processing. What we have found, the brain is very much like a computer. So a computer has got input, the computer processes the data, and it's got an output. Now the input in these kids is like us. There's no problem in the input. They can see like us, hear like us, feel like us, and all of that. When the data goes in, the brain is not able to process this data, because in particular the cerebellum, or the smaller brain, is one of the main processors of the brain. So the information that's gone in doesn't get processed, or it gets processed slower, or it gets processed partly. Now if you don't have data that's processed, you will have an inadequate output. Although the output mechanisms are intact, but you don't see an output because what has come in has not been processed. So this is primarily what is happening in the brains of children with autism, is their inputs are not being processed or are being processed slowly.
No, but you just mentioned that there have been studies going, you've been studying of the Y factor, but which is still not determined. I'm sorry, maybe I'm asking as a layman, but we're in 21st century. We are in like the technologies, the AIs and everything of the world, and still we don't know the answer of this why?
The thing is, we don't know the definitive answer. In fact, in the United States, President Donald Trump has set up an entire program, an entire committee, and has asked the Health Secretary, RFK Jr., to actually look into it. And they have recently, just last month, set up a committee of eminent scientists to specifically look into this issue. So the very fact that in the United States, they've taken about a year to put all this together and still haven't come to a conclusion means that we don't have a clear-cut answer. Now we have directions, we have indications, we have trends, we have theories, right? Now, so we have multiple possible causes. Some of them are more clear-cut, some of them are controversial, right? So I wouldn't say we don't know. I would say we do not definitely know. But we have enough data today to show roughly why this is happening.
And also, the internet loves autism genius storyline. I'm sure you must have seen the kids with gifts as a strong memory, with numbers, the calculations, the days, the dates, the obsession with the solar system, etc. So, is it like we see the label, but we ignore the signals?
So what you're saying is partially correct. However, what we have seen, and now I'm talking pure science, I'm looking at brain scans, I'm looking at those parts of the brain which are working less, but I can't ignore those parts of the brain that are working more. And my question is, what is this leading to? And so primarily what we have seen is their visual areas are working more than us. That's why they are primarily visual thinkers. We tend to be more, auditory thinkers, in the sense we think in thoughts. They think in pictures. Right? Their entire world is more in visual. And the interesting part is they can very often see things that we can't see. They're because their brain is actually functioning at a higher level.
Give me some examples.
But the real interesting thing that we have noticed is that these kids are masters at non-verbal communication. That means you and I need to talk. I need to talk, blah, blah, for you to understand me. These kids don't need the word, okay? They are masters at non-verbal communication, and there is a hypothesis, which I agree with, that this is the next level of human evolution. See, we've evolved from animals. We evolved we evolved from single cell to sea life, to reptile life, to mammals, to us. Lower animals couldn't speak, and we developed the communication of speaking. And the next level of human evolution will be non-verbal communication. Maybe in 100, 200 years from now, human beings will communicate without talking. We were to read each other's thoughts. These kids are already doing it. Already doing it. And I've had kids, who think of a number and they will tell you what you thought. And yeah, I've actually have a child. You think of any number and
You think in your mind and they know what you're thinking.
she tell you. Yeah. And I've tested multiple times. Every time this child comes to us for treatment, you think of a number, she tell you what he thought. They are preparing us for what's going to come in 200 years.
Never thought this way.
It is like that. They have an amazing ability, for example, to communicate with animals that we can't do. In particular, with horses. They will actually with horses. The two, one horses and the other dolphins. So horses have very much, the way their brain functions. So you just leave a child on the autism spectrum with a horse, they communicate. So in fact, there's an amazing autism village in Ireland where they look after people on the spectrum for their whole life. And there they use this therapy. It's called hippotherapy, where they use horses as a form of therapy. So they're able to communicate, stuff that we can't do. So what we have been doing at our institution is, instead of, I could look at this cup and say it's half empty, and you could say it's half full, and we both are right. It's time we started looking at the half full rather than the half empty, because then that transcends into a different level of achievement, accomplishment, both professional and personal.
What they have rather than what they don't have.
Absolutely.
And because what they have is way stronger than what we have.
Unthinkable and unbelievably stronger.
No, so can you just, I'm sorry, I'm so fascinated by what you're saying. I'm lost with words, but with your experience, like you said, one kid, you think of a number, knows. Any other experience which wowed you, like, oh my God, even this is possible?
Yeah, so this ability to do amazing mathematical calculations, that's like, I would say, rather common. You just tell them 1,208 multiplied by 3,400 and something, and before you can do it on a calculator, the kids, you will say 10 raised to something what it is, and they're able to answer that. So this is extremely common. Their wizardry with mathematical numbers, it's an Einsteinian ability. By the way, Albert Einstein was believed to have autism.
Yes.
So this is something we've seen. The other amazing stuff is, and this second is very common, not very common, but more common than others. You tell them any date in the future, and they will tell you the day. And I don't even know how they do it. Like any random, just tell them, 26th June 2052, and they will tell you Wednesday before you can blink an eye. And I don't even know how they. We once had a kid who could, you give him any instrument like a telephone or something, he would dismantle the whole thing, dismantle it, and put it all back together. And this kid can't even talk, he's not able to speak. How old? This was about a 7-year-old kid.
A 7-year-old kid.
And he would take a machine, anything, he would dismantle the whole thing, separate, or put it back together and make it function. It's like, wow, particular patient, I remember, was from the Maldives. And it was a non-verbal child. Non-verbal, not going to school. And this child is today fully verbal, going to a normal school and standing first in the whole standard, not just his class. Second A, the second A, B, C, D, the whole standard. And again, what happened is, of course, we did our stem cell therapy. And with that, there was improvement, but the father realized that he has this special ability. And then he bought a whole lot of books and coached him and trained him and read. And what happened is, because first, these kids love to spend time with their fathers. They just love it. It's like, and then when your father is doing something that is fascinating to the child, it's like the perfect storm. The child will learn so much in this time. So it is during this process that the child completely improved, completely off the spectrum.
Do they follow their fathers?
They tend to. So
Like the habits?
So for what happens is, all of us, any boy always looks up to the father as a role model, as an inspiration, as whatever, some people do it consciously, some do it subconsciously, but the father tends to be the role model. Now, in these kids, it's even more so. It's deeper. They can't express it. So they would try to copy and mimic everything that the father does. Now, We interestingly, when we noticed this, we actually studied this and we found to our fascination that what a father can teach a child with autism in 1 hour, it takes the mother 4 hours to teach the same thing. Not because the mother is a bad teacher, it's because kids know how to navigate around moms. Because moms, are emotional, you can navigate around them. So my suggestion to everyone is give your child about 2 to 3 hours every day and pure magic happens. And I say pure magic, I mean pure magic. Earlier to 2019 or so, we always felt the mother's role is important. And now to a surprise, we are finding the father's role is equal, if not more important. It's simple, 1:4. What you teach the child in 1 hour, mother takes 4 hours. Doesn't it make more efficient sense for the dad to spend that time?
You're speaking our life, sir. Haven't heard that ever. I've seen a lot of interviews on autism. Never heard this part before.
So this is pure observation. This is having observed the kids who've done very well. And then we figure out that it's the father that plays the major role.
All right, let's go further. But I'm sure a lot of parents ask you, is it real? What are the risks? What is your data to support what you're doing?
So again, all our work is published in scientific journals. So we were the first scientific paper published in a peer-reviewed, what is called PubMed Index, which is a high quality publication, was by us in 2013. There was a small data. Then we published another journal about 5-6 years later in a prestigious journal called the American Journal of Stem Cells. So there was 200 plus data. But last month, we published the world's largest study, which is 1,011 patients. So this was again published in a prestigious journal where we have shown that in 1,011 patients that this treatment is safe, that this treatment is effective, and that you get good results in various different symptoms of kids on the autism spectrum. So this is published data now.
So what do you expect the parents to realistically expect from this treatment?
First thing is, in a particular child, it's very difficult to predict. Okay. Now we get more information once you come to us and we do the scans, like the PET-CT scans. Based on the scans, we have our own classification system. This is something we build up. We divide children into mild, moderate, and severe. Once we do this evaluation, which is a very thorough evaluation, then we are able to tell you precisely, in your child, this is the issue, and this is the best that you can expect.
Let's get to the other part of ethics, and this is where it gets real. There's a fine line between healing and enhancement. Making a child function versus making a child upgrade to be the best. Where do you draw the line? Because if this kind of technology gets in mainstream, I'm sure doctors would not be the first people to get corrupt. There'll be power involved.
So fortunately, all our work is monitored by something called an Institutional Ethics Committee, which is registered with in the New Delhi Ministry of Health's body called CDSCO, which is the equivalent of the US FDA in India. So we have a Institutional Ethics Committee, very prominent prospective people who are all from outside the institute, and this is registered with the ministry. So there is a process by which there is what is called oversight. So whatever we do, we have to first submit our protocols to the ethics committee where it is evaluated and we are given permission. Now, one of the criteria for us to do this treatment is the PET-CT scan, because the PET-CT scan shows you if there is brain damage. So basically, if we do a PET scan and it is normal, then we cannot put in the cells. We cannot, okay? Because that's a protocol that you have to show damage in the brain to use the cell therapy.
All right, doctor. Now, here is the question which will make headlines. So I'll ask it very responsibly. Whenever there is any treatment which reduces the lifetime dependency, it threatens more than just opinions. it threatens the industries. Now, I'll ask it carefully. If the cell therapy, what you're doing, is tomorrow given a nod for the mainstream solution for neurodevelopment disorders, who do you think will lose the most?
So it's very clear. These are the rehabilitation centers. They are the ones who suffer because, for example, a child can't speak, he'll be taking speech therapy. We do our cell therapy and he starts talking. Are you going to go to a speech therapist after that? No. He's talking now.
$200 an hour
An hour.
they pay in Canada for this therapy ecosystem.
Exactly. Now, these are the people who are opposed to it. So in India, 400, and I'm not saying it, they gave an article in Times of India where they said we have 400 signatories. These are basically rehabilitation centers, therapists, doctors associated with them. That said, we've come together to stop just one thing, to stop cell or stem cell therapy for autism, because they feel threatened. They feel that once kids get better, what will happen to our source of revenue. So they are the ones singularly affected by it, and so they are very vicious in their attacks on us, and they have left no corner, no stone unturned to be able to stop our work. The other people to be affected, but these are not the people who may be directly attacking us, is the pharmaceutical industry. Let's say a child is hyperactive. He has to take medicines to reduce his hyperactivity, or whatever, and has to take them for a lifetime. Now, when our treatment makes him all right, he will stop taking those medications. So obviously, the industry will also suffer. So although the pharma industry is not directly attacking us, but they, subtly at the back end, have neither been supportive or have in some ways actively discouraged discussion on this. Another group that is directly sort of attacking or trying to stop our work is the other companies that manufacture these donor stem cells from the umbilical cord, because they are trying to stop the procedures because they want to sell their products. There's an ecosystem. There's an ecosystem that thrives on our children never getting better. And anything that is disruptive enough to make our children better is life-threatening to them. So they are physically, and I would say often violently opposed to us.
Violently opposed to us. I thought this episode will only be about more information discussion, but coming back to my soul talk perspective, you are fighting the big pharmacy tycoons, big industries, the manufacturers of donor cells, the therapy ecosystems, and you've been fighting for a long time. Aren't you scared? Aren't you tired?
Oh, no, why are you worried? So in life, there are times when you have a mission, a purpose, a reason to be alive. And my inspiration to do this work came when I was a student. I remember I was a 23, 24-year-old student when, I came across somebody who was injured and paralyzed, and, my mind decided that I want to do work in this area. I want to work in the space of, nervous system damage. And these are days before the internet and stuff like that. I remember I went to the library and read everything about it. And at that time, everybody told me I'll waste my life. They said the nervous system can never be regenerated. But I didn't give up. I had a dream. And this was a dream of a young boy in his 20s. At that time, there was nothing about fame or awards or money or recognition. It was just like, I want to do something in this field. And then it took a long time. It took me about 6 years to become a neurosurgeon. And then I joined the medical faculty at the medical college. I opted to not do private practice that time so I could focus on research. I got offers from some of the big private hospitals for to join private practice, but I gave all that up for an academic research-based neurosurgical practice. I then went out to different parts of the world to learn. The first neural transplantation actually had been done in Sweden, Stockholm, at the Karolinska Institute. I went there to learn this, but by the time I went there, it had been stopped. And then I went to America, to Denver, where, again, fetal cell transplants were being done for Parkinson. So there I learned the how to work in the lab, how to grow cells and stuff like that. So it's been a long journey. It's been a 40-year journey actually, but it's what keeps me alive. It's I can't describe the what it is that keeps me going. In fact, the more the people attack me, the stronger it makes me. The more people criticize me, the more defiant it makes me. And my inspiration and motivation comes from all these kids. I mean, every week I see about 50 kids. They come back to me and parents tell me the most amazing stories. This child couldn't talk and now see he's talking. And I have a mom who comes and says, my child had not spoken for 6, 7 years. And when he started speaking, the first thing she said is, Mommy, I love you. And then she's crying and all this is priceless. I've had kids of cerebral palsy who are wheelchair bound, could not even stand, who are now running races. And so there's story after story after story, and that is what keeps me inspired. That's what keeps me motivated. And I believe this is a fight worth fighting for. I know it may sound grandiose, but I believe what I'm saying, that this is much like the fight of Mahatma Gandhi for independence of the country, or of Martin Luther King for civil rights, or Nelson Mandela against apartheid. These people had to face opposition, criticism, attacks. When you start doing this work, you are already prepared for this. I knew it was coming, and every time it's come, Lord has been kind, the universe has been kind. We've always found a way to come out of this and continue our work. Because now this part which I'm saying, I don't know how it sounds to you, but I see the divine in these special needs kids. Each child to me has a divinity in them. And I very often tell my families, you worship God in the form of statues and temples and mosques and churches, and I get 50 real gods to worship every week. Okay, it's a true blessing, and I believe I'm protected by that, because every single person who's tried to attack us, this has gone and hit them back. We've done nothing. We've done nothing. Okay. People try to attack us, it just goes back. So I know I personally don't have that power. It's like it's called kavach, like a protection, a spiritual shield. I know I haven't made it. I know I get it from these guys. They are my protection. So there's no fear. Fear has never been there, like never. But yes, these people with their attacks, they consume a lot of my time, And significant amount of my time goes on treating from what they're doing, and in courts and government offices and regulators, and I just wish I had that time more to focus on my research, children. So my only regret is that all this takes away time to what I really want to do.
Wow. Talking about time, it's 12 a.m. He had a couple of hours of chai ka charcha and talking to me at 12 a.m. and probably has something lined up for early in the morning tomorrow. And you still want to do more.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Beautiful. Okay, I completely get it that the pharmaceuticals tried, the private companies tried, the therapy centers tried, but they tried. There's someone who has the authority to stop. Let me put it clear. Viewers know that recently there was an article where they say the Supreme Court has made a landmark of judgment and they will not take stem cell therapy anymore. He will talk about it.
Yeah, so I was in the court when that happened. I was in the courtroom, right in the courtroom, listening to the judge read this. That there is a trail of, I call it favoritism and collusion. Yeah, I'm not alleging anything else. The other word that comes to our mind is corruption, but I'm not using that word.
The first say you're sugarcoating it.
No, because I have evidence for favoritism, I have evidence for collusion, okay? But I don't know what has happened in the back. I know
Why that?
You don't know the. But that you have to leave to the viewers. If there is this whole trail of, and there's a whole trail. I mean, it's like an incredible trail. I could just go on and on.
Viewers are smart now.
Yeah. At that time, the Supreme Court said, involves the people who do the the procedure. So we were included in the case, right? After that, there is a forum of, at that time, about 1,400 parents. Now I believe it's more than 3,000. So there's something called a parent forum for stem cell in autism and cerebral palsy. So these are parents who have taken the treatment and benefited, and they have formed an association, and they told the court, we want to be heard. Now, I believe it's a principle of natural justice that before a judgment is passed, both sides have to be heard. Now, at that first hearing, when the lawyer for the parent forum said, I want to say something, he was told, don't say anything. Whatever you want to say, give in writing. Okay, so he was not heard. In other words, in a case which is about stem cells for autism, who is the main stakeholder? Who is affected the most? You tell me. The children, the families, the kids. They were given a zero hearing, no hearing. But they were asked to present the facts, so they presented. Apparently, because whoever files, it goes to everybody. So they presented all their data, and that was data. They presented the improvements. They said this is the problem with the child, this is what we treated, this is how he improved. They attached, I believe, PET scan reports and showed brain damage before, after. You know what? Zero mention of this in the judgment. Zero. No mention at all. So the three main weaknesses of this are: one, it's against the principle of natural justice not to give a hearing. Without giving a hearing, okay, a 99-page judgment has been passed without giving a hearing. The submissions made of the testimonials not considered, scientific papers not considered. So this is the technical part. Now, the other thing is that the judgment says that parents cannot demand this treatment. Basically, it says parents don't have a right to take a treatment. When, by the way, about a year ago or 2 years ago, the Delhi High Court, there was a similar case filed by the Parents Forum against the government. The judge actually said the exact opposite. He said that the choice of making treatments is a cornerstone of patient rights, and that there's a fundamental. So basically, what you have to understand is the Constitution of India gives you a fundamental right to life. Okay, and I don't think that is something which anybody can or should take away. So the judgment says to parents, sorry, you can't choose treatment. You decide what you can do or cannot do. This has obviously annoyed and upset all the parents, saying, how can anybody tell us what to do with our children? Especially when we don't have any other alternative. What's the alternative? Okay, where do we go? Another very interesting thing. People talk everything, but nowhere in either the Delhi High Court or even the petitioner who filed the case, nowhere does it say that this treatment is harmful. Nobody even mentions that it's harmful. So here's something that's not harmful. Even the people who are asking to stop it haven't said it's harmful. Okay. In the Delhi High Court, in the judgment, it mentions this treatment is not harmful. Okay. So something that's not harmful, which a couple of thousand parents have given a petition saying it has helped our children, out of which, by the way, many are doctors. I think there are 50 odd to 70 are doctors who, a doctor when he has his child take the treatment, a doctor, not layperson, he understands science. The very fact that, I think it's about 70 odd doctors have taken treatment for their children speaks for itself. So we are hoping that now, I don't think this judgment was made with any bad intention. I believe only one side of the coin was shown to be on board bench. It is our intention as parents and as service providers to show that the other side, that if you stop this treatment, the only people who will benefit are the rehabilitation centers who will fight the case, who will continue to make money. I believe that, one side has been seen, and I believe the other side should be seen, that at least we should get a hearing. A judgment of this magnitude cannot be passed without even giving a hearing.
All I can say is, if the Supreme Court of India can make a so-called landmark judgment without even giving a chance to hear one party, that's
And without even referring to the patient testimonials and scientific papers attached. The judgment doesn't even refer to it. Something's not okay.
Something is not okay. You know it. I know it. The viewers know it. But we also know that the intention with which you're fighting, you've been fighting, and you've been winning, will come out of this very easy. All the very best of that. Dr. Sharma, I want to talk about something which people whisper, but they won't talk in open. There are confirmed reports that the top athletes like Cristiano Ronaldo and LeBron James, they go offshore to get the stem cells injected to help them with their injury every now and then. Now, if celebrities can go for regenerative changes for them, and that is okay, but if a parent of an autistic child finds a hope somewhere, then the flags come out. Where are the trials? Why little Sanders?
Well, I really don't have answers to that. The thing is, and it's not whispered. They openly do it. They talk about it. They post about it. So some of the, a lot of the athletes have taken stem cells, cellular therapy for joint injuries, and it's being done openly, right? The thing is, there is nobody opposing them because there is nobody economy suffering because of it. With a stem cell for autism is a huge economy for the rehabilitation centers, for the therapists and doctors involved in that. It's a huge economy, okay? And they are threatened. They are the ones who have been fighting us continuously. Nobody else. You'll never have parents fighting us. You'll not have parents arguing against us. And we've got thousands of patients. If you make something wrong, you'd have all parents up against arms. Yes, there is a small percentage of adverse events. We publish that in our papers. We talk about it, which every treatment has. But the benefits far outweigh those small percentage of adverse events. So the reason is, nobody is suffering because they feel better. Here, there is a lobby that is affected.
Okay, Dr. Sharma, I wanted to ask this because a couple of months back, I read an article about the US FDA commissioner in presence of the President Donald Trump and the Health Secretary announcing this medicine, leucovorin, as an approved medicine for autism. What are your views on this?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So, whereas this approval happened a couple of months ago, we have been using glucorin for the last 2 years. Now, to explain this, it's a little complicated, so I'll try to simplify it. See, we have different vitamins in the body, now A, B, C, D, E, etc. So we are now referring to the B complex group of vitamins. So in the B, there is one vitamin B9. It is commonly known as folic acid. Folic acid. Now, what happens is, with terms of folic acid, when we take it in food or as supplements, it's in an inactive form. Folic acid is inactive. So the way we take it, our body and our brain can't absorb it. It has to be converted into folate, because folate is the important thing for the brain. If the brain doesn't get enough folate, it doesn't develop completely. So we take folic acid in an inactive form, right? But the body has to convert it into an active form. Now, there is a gene that is responsible for this conversion, which is called the MTHFR gene. Now, our research, and this is our original research, shows that 75% of the children on the autism spectrum, that means 3 out of every 4 kids, has a problem with the gene, which means their body is not converting folic acid as you take it into folate that's required. Okay, so what happens is, the brain is deprived of something important, and the levels of this are building up in the body. All right. So now, by giving more folic acid, you're actually doing harm. But the body needs folate. So leucovorin is a drug that bypasses this MTHFR. It's like if that one door is closed, it finds another, it enters the brain through a different channel. And so the body then gets the folate that we need. So we take it as now folinic acid, not folic acid, folinic acid, and the body gets its folate. So it's an alternative to the natural system. So we believe what we have been seeing is that when we combine leucovorin with our treatment of cell therapy, we find that speech is coming back faster. So earlier, what we noticed is that our children are improving in their understanding, improving their behavior, improving everything else, but speech was coming but very delayed. And ever since we've added leucovorin to our treatment protocol, we've seen kids are getting speech back much faster.
And that is very important information. And I think if the world's biggest and the strongest country approves it, it's no joke. And I want you to tell the viewers what I know, and a lot of viewers also know. Very soon, uh, literally very soon, Dr. Sharma is coming again to Canada for a huge conference with over 50 speakers. And I won't do justice talking about it. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
You're right. I mean, this is this great, exciting opportunity on the 2nd and 3rd of April. 2nd April is, by the way, World Autism Day. And we have the ICANN conference, which is the International Conference on Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disorders, where 50 distinguished speakers across specialities, people working in the high-tech areas of new treatments, various therapists, various specialists are all going to be there to present their viewpoints, their research, their clinical and science data on what is happening in the field of autism. It's not easy always to get to hear 50 experts on a subject all under one roof. What is special about ICANN is that this is a conference where parents are invited to participate. Most medical conferences, doctors talk and doctors listen. This is unique because doctors talk, but parents get to listen. And here you get first-hand information from the pioneers in the field of autism. So I welcome all of you. Please, you can find the information and data and do join us at the conference. You all will truly love it.
So amazingly, you said that time is the key. We spoke about importance in time, but I will specially bring Dr. The South Asian community here. Now, in our South Asian community, there's no acceptance even till date. People judge you, they stare you, you can't go out to the gatherings, to parties, people shame you, and they don't say anything. Their expressions do say. And parents, most of them, I would say, they don't accept what the problem is. Rather, they go and tell themselves, oh, there's nothing wrong, he'll be okay, he'll be okay. Give a pat on the back, take him to a pundit, do this, do that. And don't you think you get cases where people lose time themselves because they don't accept it?
What you're saying is very true. But before I begin to answer that question, we've noticed something else interesting. We've noticed that the incidence of autism is much higher in the immigrant population from a place rather than the native population. We've also found the incidence to be much less in villages than in urban areas. They have differing viewpoints. One is, and this is particularly so, very often there's fault and finger pointing at the parents. That, this was wrong parenting, maybe you did something wrong and your child is like this, which despite it being completely untrue, can be very painful for the parents. You're already going through so much and having to look after your child, and then if you're told you're responsible. Now, my answer to that is you can't change the world. You can only change your response to it. Okay. Once you start looking at these children not as what they don't have, but what they have exceptionally, then you realize that you're the chosen one. Okay. And then you realize that you are chosen to look after these kids which have these very special abilities to do things It changes your own. So you have to change your own perspective. And then when somebody else talks like that, you just have a smile on your face. It doesn't affect you at all. So I don't think we can change the community. All we can do is change our own attitude and approach towards it. And that's only when you look at what a special needs is. There's an interesting saying. It takes a village to raise a child on the autism spectrum. What do we mean by the village? It includes everyone. It includes not just the immediate family, but grandparents, cousins, extended family, neighbors, professional colleagues. That's a whole village. So my message to the community is that there isn't any of us who do not know a family that does not have a child on the autism spectrum. Okay, it's become so common today. So we all of us, whether we are immediate family, whether we are extended family, whether we are neighbors, whether we are professional colleagues, all of us have a duty and a responsibility, okay, to do whatever we can to ensure an appropriate bringing up of these children. It may mean having these kids over, come over to your place, to just play with your kids. It may be celebrating functions together. There are small little things that we can do. What I'm very happy about is that the industries, they have started recognizing it. So, for example, the first airline in the world that is now an autism certified airline is Emirates. They're actually talking about looking after these kids, especially, and that's big. When Emirates did say that we are autism certified. We recently had an invitation from the Taj Group, the Taj Hotel Group, and that was very interesting. They had called the entire staff of the hotel, everyone, okay, and they wanted us to talk to them on, what can they do to make their hotels a better place for people on the spectrum, as it wasn't only for children and families coming to stay. They also had something very interesting to ask us. What if somebody on the spectrum applies for a job? What are their skill strengths? How can we make them work? Then they also asked, if any of our employees has a child on the autism spectrum, what can we do to, ensure that there is this work-life balance for this? So now the big corporates are also now starting to look at this. And this together is going to make the world a better place for a wonderful special needs kids.
Isn't that beautiful? If a child can't speak, people think there's nothing there. But inside that child is a whole person, a whole universe. And the problem always isn't love. It isn't effort. It isn't bad parenting. It's that blocked connection. Parents, they don't need miracles. They don't need trials. They only need that one moment, that one look, that one word which tells them, "Hi, Dad. I've been there." So, Dr. Sharma, I ask you, if there's a parent watching this podcast right now who's tired, who's exhausted, who's judged, and who's terrified about the child's future, if there's one thing you'll tell them, what will that?
One, don't give up faith and don't give up hope, because our children have nobody else except the parents. Okay, if we give up on them, they have absolutely nowhere to go. That is the first, to keep faith and hope. Now, second, have faith in the science. There is enough science. There is enough medical innovation and it's not science fiction. It's in real. It's a treatment we've been practicing for 17 years. Okay. So it's not in the future. It's there right now. It's just that the world is not ready to accept it. If possible, avail of this treatment wherever it's available. I know right now we are practicing in India, and it's very far away for a whole lot of parents in Canada and North America, but there's good news. Starting from the 1st of June, we are now going to be starting a hospital in Nassau, the Bahamas, So we're going to be 3 to 4 hours away from you, and you will have the treatment available. Everything that we are now doing in India will soon be available close to you as well. So do consider this, because I believe our children deserve that. Okay, they deserve that whatever is limited in their brains be taken care of in a simple, scientific way, and that gives them the opportunity for the rest of the brain, which, by the way, is working more than our brains. Okay, when we give an opportunity for that brain to be expressed, it results in an Elon Musk or a Bill Gates. As you're aware, Elon Musk is known to have autism. He talks about his autism. Bill Gates, in a recent interview to BBC and in his book Source Code, actually mentioned that as a child, he had all the symptoms of autism. So, but again, here, what we have to understand is that we have to support our children out of the limitation that they are in presently, so that their natural intellectual capability, which we are seeing on their PET scans, by the way. Okay, we are seeing this. So this is not hypothetical. This is not something mysterious. This is real science in the today. And I'm not talking of one or two. I'm talking of over 7,000 brain scans that we have done in kids with autism, and almost everyone, apart from brain that's not working, have got parts of the brain which are working more. Once they are able to express it, they don't just live independent lives. They contribute to mankind. They contribute to humankind. Some of the greatest inventions, some of the greatest discoveries have come with people with some amount of, not necessarily autism, but some amount of ADHD or, some learning disability. And these are the people who have changed the world.
Dr. Sharma, thank you so much for this conversation, which wasn't comfortable, but very important. And to the parents watching, take what you think is useful. Question what needs to be questioned. But don't let this world shame you for searching for help. If there is one thing you take from today's podcast, is autism is not the story of less. It's the story of being blocked. Thank you for watching.